Hello friends, this is Prakash here. In this video, we will look at k-nearest neighbor classifier example. We will take a popular iris dataset which we have been reviewing for various examples. And please note that this is a continuation of the previous video that we have seen on the theoretical conceptual overview about the k-nearest neighbors and broadly how the nearest neighbor based algorithms work. So that's a prerequisite. If in case you haven't seen this video, please do check out the video link on the top. So please definitely watch that before continuing with this video. All right, let's move on. Right, in this step, we are just trying to import the required libraries, the NumPy, Matplotlib and Seaborn for visualization. And the data sets that we are going to use here is for the iris dataset. So datasets is a very important library which contains all the inbuilt datasets that can be used for learning purpose. So that's why this is used. And neighbors, this is the actual module that implements classification models as well as regression models, and there are various other neighbors based algorithms that are implemented in this module. So this is why this is used here. And listed color maps, this is basically used by Matplotlib while we are plotting it, right? So that's about the imports. Now in this example, what we will really see is, we will look at few samples, not the few samples, few columns from iris dataset. We will take a two-dimensional example for visualization. So if you remember, iris dataset has almost 4 parameters like the sepal length and width and petal length and width. These are the 4 parameters. But for the sake of this example, we will try to visualize this in a two-dimensional space. We will try to classify based on sepal length and sepal width like this. We'll try to visualize on sepal length and sepal width, and we will try to classify the actual samples, right? These are all the training samples that we have used. And we will also try to color this as a contour graph with a lot of deep driven predictions. So when I say deep driven predictions, basically what I mean is we will do a lot of testing here. These are the dots that we are seeing as samples. These are the actual samples. We will use those samples for training, and everything else you are seeing on the colored graphs, you can think of it as a mesh of testing data, right? Each x and y value at every area, we will try to predict it. And if that happens to be one particular category, we color some way, and we color it based on the outcome, right? So that is what we're going to do. We're going to see, and we'll visualize how this works. So let's keep going. In the next step, we're trying to import the data, load_iris. And we are taking only the 2 columns as I mentioned, and we're taking all the x samples, all the rows, but only the 2 columns, and the y is the target within the imported data, right? So the imported data has a lot of fields. It's not just about data, and target is exposed as different fields. And in fact, like if you want to explore this data set, there is a description field that you can also use to read about the data set, what it contains and why it is used, a background about the data set so far. Right, so let me run this. And also we can see that X has got this, 2 samples. two features in each row. So that has been sliced, and Y really contains only the output classifications, right? So that's what we have got out of this step. And in the next step, what we are going to do is we are going to plot the, we are going to first create the k-nearest neighbor classifier algorithm object with 5 nearest neighbors, right? Remember, k-nearest neighbor works on the basis of k nearest samples, right? So we have to pass that how many number of neighbors that we want to use. So that's 5. So we are building that classifier object here using this, and we are fitting it, right? The x and y values that we have taken, we're just trying to fit it, right? And the next steps that we are doing here, so these are going to be all the steps that we are now going to see follows is primarily for plotting it, right? So our model training is over here, and we do a prediction, right? So we do a prediction. That's another step that is involved in training and predicting, but everything else here that we're going to see is purely for plotting. So let me explain that, right? So in the first, we will take the first column, which is sepal length, and the second column, which is sepal width, and we're going to take the min max of those particular columns. so that we will know what is the range of those values, and we will use that to actually plot as x-axis and y-axis, right? So we will take one parameter for x-axis, we'll take one parameter for y-axis into the graph, and we are capturing the min and max of them, so that we will only plot with those values as a range. So that's what we are doing in this step, right? I mean, the next step, it's a very tricky one. So this is actually doing a mesh grid, right? Mesh grid is nothing but, we have the range of values like x min and x max for the x-axis, and for the y-axis we have y min and y max, and for these values x min and x max and y min and y max, we will also use a small step increment called h here, right? So that step increment is, it's the resolution into the graph that we want to get. So we have taken a very small sample, 0.02. So that means we will try to get on the plot, we will get a resolution as close as possible, so that we will try to test, like I mentioned, we are trying to plot all the areas within this mesh, within this grid as much as possible. So I'm taking as close samples as possible for x and y as well, and we will try to create a mesh grid out of it. So that's what this basically does, np.meshgrid. So let me explain a little bit closely. np.arrange, it basically does, taking this range x min and x max values and the step increment, it will give you a one-dimensional array that is uniformly spaced, right? So the x values have come on the x-axis, and this one will do the same thing for the y-axis, y min and y max, and with that small step increment, it is also going to give us a one-dimensional array, right? These two one-dimensional arrays are passed to this mesh grid, and what the mesh grid really does is it actually broadcasts the x-axis along the y, right? So because we want to get, in a way, we want to get a Cartesian product of it, right? All the x samples and all the y samples, we need a sample for each and every location within this grid. So for that to happen, we will take the x values here and we will broadcast it along the y-axis, right? We take the y values, we broadcast it along the x-axis. So that's when we will be able to do a Cartesian product, right? So taking these two as sets, but instead of doing a direct Cartesian product, all we are doing is we are preparing that sort of broadcasted arrays for x that is broadcast along the y-axis. That will be that set of values will be formed, and y values will be broadcasted along the x-axis, and that set of values will be formed in another array as two arrays, and then we will do a product of it point to point. So that really becomes a Cartesian product, and we are getting each and every sample within this, right? And for each and every sample within this, we want to predict. So that's the ultimate end goal, and we predict and we want to plot it with the respective color. If it is for one particular category, we'll let's say we got the prediction as versicolor, we will use this hue for it, right? That's how we got this contour graph with completely filled regions with deep testing. So that's exactly what we're doing here, right? So let me explain again. The mesh grid is preparing that matrix that I mentioned, the broadcasted matrices for x along the y-axis and y along the x-axis. Now, if you notice, we are also doing a ravel here. So ravel, basically, it is going to make them as one-dimensional arrays, right? Whatever dimensions that we have got here, it is going to make it single dimension for xx and single dimension for yy, so that's the way we have to pass it into your prediction, right? Prediction, it only expects two samples for every row, right? So that previous dimension won't hold good. So that's why we are trying to but we are capturing xx and yy separately, so that we can actually pass it for the graph. But otherwise, when we are passing it for prediction, we want to make it as flattened arrays, and then we'll pass them as two different arrays here. So that will be used for predictions, right? So that's what is going to happen here. And what we will then do is we will reshape z into the xx dimension, right? Now z also will come as a flattened array, because now that we have actually got xx and yy flattened, and each row there is prediction, so it will basically come as a one-dimensional array for us, but that we want to shape it into the xx dimension. So that's when we can actually plot it here, right? So we got the values for all the areas, and then we will convert it into this dimension so that we can plot it. So that's what the reshape is doing here. right? And then reshape into the XX shape, right? So now we will just use all the data that we now got. We have got the coordinates, we've got the predictions, so we can just go ahead and plot it, right? So first step here is we are creating a figure, and we are going to do a contour graph, right? Contour graph is where we are actually going to fill it for every region within all those regions, right? So we are passing xx, yy, and z, right? Xx, yy is those coordinates, right? And z, this is the x coordinates, and this is the y coordinates, and the z here is the predictions. Then we are going to pass the the color map. So the color map here is we are using a listed color map object with 3 different colors, right? So that is what we are passing here. So this will basically index into the color map with these colors, and for one color, for each color here we'll get one color map object which will be passed here, right? And they will be used for the respective prediction. So for the z values, whatever is the z value, for unique z value, one color from each will be used here. So that is what is going to happen. And when we run this, let me comment this for now, for the next steps, and we will see how the graph looks. Alright, I think it's still plotting. Yeah, so if you look at it now, we have plotted the predictions with the colors also filled in, right? So we can clearly see one color of this is indicating one classification, and there are some overlaps here. If you see, yeah, those could be error cases, but or maybe that is the way this data is also spread out. But the idea is, for every particular sample in this mesh grid, that is like almost, we've got almost 61,000 samples. If I multiply the x into x by y, for those many samples we have computed, and we have actually colored this, right? This is all the prediction graph. But where are the actuals, right? So the actuals, we only have 150 samples. So those 150 samples also will superimpose here. So we'll try to plot those 150 samples on the same graph, and we will see how do they look together, and whether the respective samples in actuals are falling in the right prediction buckets as well, or vice versa, right? Whatever is predicted, is it the actuals are also around that dimensions or that regions or not, is what we're going to see. So that is actually what I have commented. I will now uncomment it, which we are using the Seaborn to do a scatter plot on the same graph. On the same graph, we are going to plot along those x and y dimensions, right? So we have, remember, this x is nothing but our samples, input samples, so which is those 150 samples that we have got, x and y, and hue is nothing but the target names. So our outputs are the target names, right? So those target names for the given y values, right, that we will take. Y values are actually indices, correct? So y values will have, you see, when we gathered the data, y value is the output of each and every row, right? Now we'll pass that into, we will take that and we'll pass it into the target names. So if you look at iris.target names, sorry, I think it should be target underscore names. Something wrong. Let me So if you look at the target names, we only have those 3 elements, right? So we will just pass each y value as an index into it, and we'll get the respective values, right? So we only have 3 categories, so those 3 will be used as a hue. So hue will basically plot it as a each value that will plot it as a separate color, right? So it will also be used as a color map and distinguishing sample, and for those the colors will be applied like this, right? So these will be distinguishing samples that will be plotted, and these will be the the colors that will be applied onto it, right? And edge color is black. So for the graph, for the samples that we are going to list down, so let us just see how that comes over here. Okay, so now we can see that all the things that are in dark orange here, so over orange, this is the predictions, these are the actuals. So if you see Setosa, almost we have predicted almost 90% to 99% correct, except this one point. Everything else is very well predicted. So predictions and actuals are matching into that particular category. But for the other ones here, the versicolor and virginica, there are overlaps. You can see the dark blues are coming here into the cyan, and into the cornflower blue we are seeing cyan colors coming in. So that means those are the error cases that are actually predicted. So we have predicted this as this particular sample, as you can see, which is the cyan color, is predicted as cornflower blue. So we colored it as cornflower blue, but it is actually, it should have been cyan. So that sort of error predictions are there, but they are minimal. You can notice that there are not many of them, so which is actually indicating a good predictions that is being done by our algorithm here, right? So that is exactly what we wanted to see, how things can be plotted. And the next steps, I'm just titling it and giving the X label and Y label. So that's what we have plotted here. But we are also looping it. We are looping it for two different combinations, right? So if you remember, there is also another parameter that we can pass for our algorithm is weights, right? So weights will indicate whether it is uniform or distance based, right? So uniform based weights or distance based weights. But I think we didn't pass it here, so maybe we should pass it here. Weights is equal to weights. That's when these graphs will be different. Yeah, so now the weights is passed with for one iteration we have taken uniform weights, for the next iteration we have taken distance based weights. So that means the more the distance, the less the weight of that vote, right? So again, k-nearest neighbor works on the basis of the majority of the voting, but the voting weight will reduce if the distance is far off. So based on that, we can see there are some differences here, right? There are more for distance based. In fact, we have got more errors here. I think that's by nature of our distribution of data, but we definitely have good amount of overlaps in both the samples. But otherwise, I think broadly they are matching with 80 to 90% of the scenarios. But there are some differences, right? So depending upon our data distribution, sometimes uniform does well, and sometimes distance does well, especially when our data is really sparsely distributed, right? So that's the overall implementation, how we can take an example data set where classification is involved, and how we can bring out deep predictions and do a contour graph with nicely filled graphs, and then we can superimpose the actuals on top of it for a better visualization, right? I hope you really liked something out of it and you grasp the concept of how k-nearest neighbor works. I will see you in the next video with the k-nearest neighbor regressor. Until then, take care. Thank you.